Ellen Burns Johnson. She's the lead game designer at the Game Agency, which is the game division of ELB Learning. She's an award-winning learning experience designer, and she is here today to introduce our newest game in the training arcade, Noodle. All right, Ellen, I will let you take over.
And thanks, Steph. Yeah, so we're going to talk about Noodle today, which might be over the lunch period for many of you. And I think that timing is perfect. I, for one, have not had lunch. I have been looking with envy at the chat, thinking, okay, mushrooms with chicken rice sounds amazing. But I will say every time I talk about this game, I come away wanting to have ramen. So let me know towards the end of the session if that's true for you as well. I'm going to share my screen. I have a couple slides that I want to just have to provide some background, and we're going to then spend most of our session today looking at the game itself. We have a little demo built up for you. We're going to show a little bit of the back end. I'll kind of explain where we're going to take this session, and then we can jump right into it. So let me grab my screen share. Just as I'm pulling this up in the chat, can you all let me know if you can hear me correctly or hear me well and good and all that?
I can definitely hear you.
All
Yes, we are
right.
getting lots of thumbs up emojis.
Perfect. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Can everyone see Noodle, a new game coming to the training arcade?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So we've already explained the new game is called Noodle. If you're familiar with the training arcade, you know we have a host of different games available. Some of them are working with familiar mechanics that you'll see in other popular games like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. We have some games with mechanics that you might find in popular video games. We have Jump, which if you've ever played a Mario game, you know what that's all about. We have a match game, so on and so forth. This game, Noodle, builds on a popular mechanic that you may recognize if you've ever played a game called Wordle or any of the many Wordle-like games that have come out over the last few years. So we're playing a little bit with this mechanic, but we have put a lot of different twists on it to make it useful for an instructional context. So what I want to share with you today is just what we've done with the game, kind of what it's looking like right now, and a little bit about what we're going to be doing for its upcoming launch. Now, a little more background. If you're familiar with the training arcade, then you might be familiar with the Game Agency. We are the games and gamification division of ELB Learning. We do game-based learning. We do custom games. We help with gamification strategy. And we also develop and maintain our games for learning service, which is the training arcade. So that's where we're coming from. And I'm the lead game designer in there. Fantastic team. Of which I am just one member. So know that whatever you see today is definitely the result of a group of people working over a long period of time. So today we'll do a quick overview of Noodle, what we're going to be seeing. We'll do a little quick demo game where we're going to guess some things. We're going to guess some puzzles and get some noodles. We'll talk about potential instructional applications of Noodle. And then we'll look at the behind the scenes, kind of what it looks like to create a game, to create a puzzle. And then we'll finish out with a look ahead at what's coming up in the roadmap and finish up with 10, 15 minutes of Q&A. So that is the plan. Quick disclaimer before we actually show the game on screen. You've probably read between the lines on what I said earlier, but we are planning to launch Noodle soon. However, some of what we're going to show today is still work in progress, right? This is a software as a service. It's iterative design. We're never done working on something like this. We're always listening to your feedback, listening to what's happening with our customers and with their learners, and making adjustments to the games on the platform and the platform itself. So that will continue up until launch and afterward. So this is what we have right now. We're going to be launching soon. Some of what you'll see is still work in progress. And if you have any feedback, for sure, type it in the chat. And if you have any feedback that you want to share afterwards, I'll give you my contact information on the last slide. So you can hit me up on email or the socials. Okay. Just a quick note on the chat. Looks like there's some screen resolution issues. Let me know, Steph and Jennifer, if there's anything I need to do to change that and fix things for people.
I have changed nothing about the Zoom settings.
Okay.
It might just be Deborah, maybe try logging out and logging back in, or you can um, hide Ellen's camera view for yourself if you want to try to get the screen share bigger.
Okay. Well, I'll let you guys talk one-on-one with Deborah. If she needs a little bit more tech support, we're going to continue on since we're going to try to get through all this during lunch. Okay. So Noodle is a puzzle game. You guess the word and you get noodles. Some of the features of the game are you've got variable word length, which is not necessarily what you find in some of the games that are out there free to play. You get limited tries, just like in some of the more classic takes on the genre. We've got categories, prompts, and hints, which I'll explain a little bit more while we're playing. We've got points, we've got opportunities for feedback. We're working on leaderboards like we have in many of our other games on the training arcade. And of course, we have delicious, noodly art, which we'll see on display in a moment. So let's play. I'm going to change my screen here, just get out of the presentation view. And I am going to move over to our Noodle MVP. So what we've got here is a demo game that we've built. I put it together based on kind of some demo content that is similar to what some of our customers use. We work with a lot of healthcare companies. And so this is kind of just to be kind of a test or representation of what that content might be. Should be pretty good though for a general audience. I think most of you will be able to solve the puzzles with a few guesses. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start here and we're going to just click through our puzzles and I will ask for your guesses in the chat. So the chat's going to probably blow up. And that's okay because I think that'll be fun. When you see a puzzle, if you have an idea for what the guess should be, type it in. I'll wait for a couple seconds. I'll take one of the guesses that's in the chat and I'll type it into the game and you guys can see how the game unfolds. All right, let's get started. So can everyone see the instructions page right now? It says Noodle, solve the prompt to fill your bowl.
Yes, we can see that.
Awesome. Okay. I'm not going to worry about the instructions right now. We're working on revamping this. It's a little text heavy at the moment. Plus, I'm going to explain how to play as we go. So here we go. I'm going to continue. And what we've got right now, I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. That's a little better. Okay. What we've got right now is we've got our first puzzle. So we've got our on-screen keyboard. You can use that to enter your letters, or you can use your regular physical keyboard. We've got a body part, that's our category. And then we've got where oxygen enters the bloodstream, and that's our prompt. Okay, I see lots of really interesting and guesses here. I see plum.
Yeah, I
That's
think
interesting.
we should definitely go with plum, right?
Okay, I see a lot of people putting in lung as a guess, also nose or nose mouth. I think plum is a hilarious guess, and so I just want to show what happens if we enter something like that, so you can just see the game in action. So I'm going to enter plum, which probably is not it, right? Because we don't have plums for body parts. Okay, so what do we got here? We've got some additional information about what the actual puzzle solution will be. We know that P is not going to be in the solution word, neither is M, but L and U both are. However, this light blue or light blue gray indicates that that letter, while it's in the solution word, is not in the right place right now. So if you were guessing lung, that seems like a pretty good guess at this moment now that we have a little bit more information. Let's keep going. L-U-N-G. So the first time I used the on-screen keyboard right there, I just used my physical keyboard to enter it. Yes, Karen, it is what we would call a Wordle-like. So it works with similar game mechanics as classic Wordle, but it is not Wordle. We've made a lot of our own game design has gone into this, not just the guess the letter mechanic. Okay. I also think, Karen, it's really there's another Karen who found a lung emoji, which is wild. I didn't know that was a thing. Here we go. Okay. You guys got the first one really fast. I played with some groups who took a while to get that first one. Okay. Here's what we've got. So we've got our solution word. We have a little bit of chance for additional facts and feedback if we want to add them in. And then we have a little bit of a nod to how we're doing in our scores. This is our first puzzle. We've only had one of 4 puzzles played. We've solved that first puzzle though. We got a full bowl. And this is what our bowl looks like. So what you'll see, and you might have seen the animation, sometimes it doesn't come through very well on Zoom, but if you are playing it live on your own, you will see that that bowl animates with different contents depending on how well you do with your puzzle solution. The faster you solve it, the fewer tries that you need, the more you get in your bowl, and it's a little more satisfying. Okay. This one's going to be a lot tougher. So you'll notice that the letter count is really different, right? The first one, we only had 4 letters, makes it a little bit easier. This one's longer. So what guesses do you have for this one? We've got play this sport for 1 hour to burn about 500 calories. Lots of people guessing tennis, about 50%, soccer, pickleball will not fit, but that's interesting. You could type that right in and you could see pickle will fit, but not pickleball. Okay, lots of people guessing soccer. Let's see what we've got. Soccer. Pressing enter on my keyboard. Okay, what do we got here? So we've got no O's or C's or R's, but we do have an S and an E. Okay, what does that say for us in terms of guessing? Eating, competitive eating? Yeah, especially if it's noodles. I'll do that. Okay, couple more people. Yep, too many too many letters. Exactly. It's kind of fun when you think of something like a little off the wall, but then you realize that no, it's not going to work. Okay, bunch of people entering tennis now. Let's go ahead and enter that one in. I'll use the on-screen keyboard. Okay, there we go. Look to see how many noodles we get. Yeah, okay. Similar thing. We guessed it on the second try. We get a similar amount of noodles. Again, here are some interesting facts about our particular topic at hand. For a competitive singles game, average person burns like 500 calories plus an hour. I'm not sure if I could make that because I'm not very good at tennis, but maybe I would do that because I'd be running all over the court. Who knows? Okay. Steph, yeah, I know. Good question, Renee. We're going to get to that next. If you get every guess wrong, we'll look at that as well. And then I also want to show what the hint feature looks like. So we can do that on the next puzzle. And I see Karen has found the noodle emoji. Let's click next. While this next puzzle is loading, I see Jennifer asked if there's music in the game. That's something we are currently finalizing. So I had a preview of the in-game music and sound effects earlier this week, and they are amazing. Super fun, really relaxed, kind of chill background music with some really delightful sound effects. And I'm really excited for that to get into the game for you all. Okay, we've got for guesses, we've got run, 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 eat, tag, run, tag, tag, tag. Okay, interesting. I'm going to guess run first. And I'm going to deliberately get this one wrong because I want to show you what happens when that what that ends up for, how that ends up for the learner. Okay, so we've got multiple tags. We've got eats, which I'm going to guess next. We've also got jog, which is a good one. So I'm going to guess eats. Great cardiovascular workout for adults and kids that like, maybe or if you're at the state fair. Okay, so we've got an A, and there is a T here, but it's not in the right place. So if you have been thinking tag, you're probably thinking, oh yeah, that's got to be it. You should guess that. And I probably should if I were really playing the game. But what I want to do for this particular puzzle is show you what happens if I get it wrong. So you can see just by process of elimination, we know it's going to be tag. If I wanted to get it right and get a solution for this puzzle, I would enter that. But right now, what I want to do is I want to use a hint. What happens here is this will reveal one of the letters of the puzzle. Now, in a 3-letter puzzle, that's really making it pretty easy. But this will also remove points from your final score. So if you use a hint, it might help you on the puzzle if you're not quite remembering, what a lung is or what some 6-letter sports words might be. But for here, you can do that. So it is going to reveal this first letter. I can use that, or I can type in a different letter, right? It's just giving me a little more information that I can use in my process of elimination. In this instance, we know at this point that the solution is tag. What I am going to do is I'm going to do something else. I'm going to put maybe T, which I don't think is a cardiovascular workout, but sounds really good right now that we're kind of coming up on the afternoon. So I'm going to press enter just to show you what happens if we get the puzzle wrong. That, I don't know what that is. We have to make up a new sport called GAT. Okay, so the solution was tag. There we have it. And we don't get any noodles in our bowl because we didn't get the puzzle right. So even if you get the puzzle correct only on the last try, you still get a little couple noodles in your bowl, and that's something to feel happy about. Um, we have some really good questions in the chat. Okay, from Jennifer, can you determine how many points are lost from the hint? We have a bunch of algorithms for that in the back end. The number of points that you get for a puzzle is somewhat determined by the length of the word. And so the cost of using hint on a short word is relatively higher than the cost of using a hint on a longer word. And we have decided not to surface that right now for the player just because it's kind of a distracting amount of information. We'll see how that play tests with people out in the field. And if we get feedback that we want to know how much you'd actually lose, we might put that information in there. So if you have ideas on that, feel free to let us know. Aaron asked a really good question. Will it take words that are not real, like GAT? The answer is yes. And the reason for that is that we've got a lot of different companies who have proprietary information and terms that they might want to use in this game, right? So think about some of the abbreviations or special terms that you have in your company and what it would take to try to enter them all in the back end. So you could technically type in gibberish. I will say that we haven't seen that. I think most people, if they get to that, they're being really clever about the tactics they can use in this game. It adds a little bit more of a fun kind of way of puzzling out the solution. You can enter gibberish, but you know that that's not going to be the real, it ends up being a waste of a turn, unless you're really, really stuck. So that's why you could technically enter GET, and you would get interesting information back about what words and letters are correct, or what letters are correct, but it's never going to be a gibberish solution unless that gibberish is actually some sort of meaningful abbreviation, acronym, initialism, within the context of your training game, if it makes sense. Oh, wow. Okay. GAT is actually a word. Cool. I learned that. All right. We got one more puzzle. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up next for the game, and we'll look a little bit at the back end. So the freeway of the bloodstream. What guesses do we have for this particular puzzle, the last one of our game? Veins. Interesting. Okay. But veins, aorta. What other guesses do we have? Okay. Let's see. It's almost 50-50. Plums. We're not guessing plums again. Heart. Ooh, that's interesting too. Okay. We've got, I think, 2 aorta, 1 guess of heart, 3 of veins. I am going to guess aorta, and I'll tell you why in a second. Okay. Have played this demo game before. The reason I wanted to show you that is just show that there's a little bit of extra fun that happens when you get it right on the first try. You get more points. We're working on the graphics right now. I think we've got some feedback that we don't want the chopsticks sticking straight up and down. So we're working on changing that art. But we do want to add, every time you do a little bit better on a puzzle, you want to have a little bit more fun for making that solution. So this is what it looks like if you get it right on the first try. And here we are at the very end of the game. Now we have a leaderboard button here. We don't have the leaderboard set up for this particular demo game, but it is something we're planning on launching with. So that is our Noodle game. I'm going to come back to my presentation deck and talk a little bit about how we envision people being able to use this in a training program. Meredith, that's a good idea. I really like that. Okay. All right. So now can everyone see instructional applications on this slide? We should be back to our...
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Very good. Okay, so we created Noodle because we were getting some feedback that there was a desire for a type of game like this on the training arcade. And what we were thinking about when we were building it was how people might use it as part of their curriculum, right? And we never think that one particular type of interactivity is going to solve all needs within a curriculum because there's lots of different learning objectives, right? And lots of different performance objectives, and whatever interactivity we end up using should be aligned with those performance objectives. So Noodle we see as something that could be used really effectively for these four instructional design requirements. So we're looking to build motivation. So if you've got a lot of content to get through and some of it's maybe really dry, you've got to reinforce some terminology that and there's a big stack of it that people need to know. This can be a way to reinforce some of that content and build some motivation for people to learn that body of knowledge, because the more they know a body of knowledge that you're using in the game, the more effectively they'll be able to solve those puzzles. So that's one. Increasing engagement is another way. Noodle and doing those fun puzzles is a way to just kind of mix up the modality. So if you want to use it in between more classic e-learning modules, this is a fun way to kind of create a different type of interactivity and build in engagement just through variety. Same thing if you want to maybe enhance break time. Maybe you're doing an ILT or a VILT and you want to send people out for their lunch break or take a 15-minute break. You can toss a link to a Wordle puzzle or a Wordle game up on the screen and have people go through it while they're on their break. So it's a good way to kind of just build in some break time while still keeping the content and the learning kind of fresh in people's minds. And to that point, kind of our last idea for a use case and for an application of Noodle is to reinforce learning. One of the things we really thought about is, would it be fun if we did a Wordle puzzle, a different Wordle puzzle for each day during a 2-week onboarding training? So if we had new learners coming in, there being just this deluge of new material, new organization, new culture, new content, it's all overwhelming. Give them a little noodle puzzle to start the day with. Maybe it comes online every morning at 6 a.m. People can load up the noodle puzzle while they're having their breakfast, their morning tea or coffee, and just kind of do it as a warm up. So I think there's some, probably some more interesting and creative ways to use Noodle, and we're really excited to see what our admins, our game creators, and instructional designers will will use for this. So let's see here. Let's keep going. Next I want to do just a quick time check. So we're about 11:20. We're doing pretty well, I think, on our time. I want to show a little bit of the back end. The back end on how to create a game of Noodle. So let me come back over to this. And are you guys seeing
The training arcade.
You are? Okay, you're seeing the training arcade? Okay, thank you. Read my mind. Okay, so if you haven't seen the training arcade before, ooh, do I have annotation on? Yes, I do. I don't want that. Okay, now we're back. All right. If you haven't seen the training arcade before, this is the back end. So this is where you can look at analytics, you can look at the games you've created, you can make new games, you can make arcades. This particular iteration, this particular instance of the training arcade is our dev environment. So some of the things that you'll see here aren't necessarily on the live training arcade in production yet, but we're here because we're going to look at making a Noodle game, and that is currently only on the dev environment. Hopefully we'll get it out to you soon. That's the plan. So you can see here what we've done is I've searched for existing Noodle games. This is one of them here that we could look at and we could go back in and edit. What I want to do here is just create a new game. So I'm just going to exit this, leave back here. I'm going to go new game. I'm going to choose Noodle. And here we have our initial game builder interface. So first we have our game information. So if you think about what type of game you want to create, what content you want to cover, this is kind of where you start setting that up. So I think that it would be fun to maybe do one on fruit because we kept talking about plums. So fruit trivia, and we're going to go with English tags. I'm going to put in demo, so we can easily find that in the back. And then here's the URL. So if you're familiar with the Training Arcade already and you've been using our platform to make games, then you will know this is where you can change your URL if you want to make it custom. You can set up a game start date when it becomes available to players, a game end date when it becomes no longer available to players. You can choose to show that leaderboard on the last game on the final screen, or you can choose not to. There's a lot more you can do. You could add, learn more, so on and so forth. And then you can work with game scoring, whether you want that to be gated or you want it to be open, and so on and so forth. This is all pretty standard for the Training Arcade. We are looking at ways that we can streamline this, not just for this game, but globally. We'll get to that in the last slide of the deck. Once a Noodle or any game has been created, can you edit the language without having to recreate the game? That is a good question. I'm not sure about that, actually. Jennifer or Steph, do you guys know the answer to that one off the top of your head?
I think you could change the language, but it'll only change the language for the instructions, not for your questions. Like the content that you put in would stay whatever language you had made it. But I think you could change the language setting for the instructions of the game.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look at making a puzzle. Okay, thanks, Julie. Just a note from Julie there that we won't have translations on launch. It'll be English only, I think, when launched. But again, we'll have contact information at the end of the presentation. So if you have additional questions or we want to follow up on any of these things, please reach out. Okay, so here we are adding a puzzles. We've got the randomized questions, which is randomized puzzles right now is currently on. So the puzzles won't necessarily appear in the same order. Add a puzzle. We've got a noodle puzzle, that's the type. Category is basically a way of, we're building it as a way of comparing information about a particular sub area of content. So let's say if you have fruit trivia as your overall game topic, you might have something like North American fruits or European fruits as a category, and you will eventually be able to compare performance within this particular category. So you could look at a particular learner and see what category they're strongest in. You can look at your learners in aggregate and see what categories they're strongest in and maybe what they're weakest in. So you can see where people might need a little bit more remediation. That's the idea behind categories that we're eventually working toward. Right now, it's kind of a way of organizing the information for people to use while they're trying to solve the puzzle. So I think we're going to do, let's do apples. And we're going to say variety invented at the University of Minnesota. Because I'm in Minnesota, so I know the answer to this question. Okay. So this is your prompt. This is that secondary text that appears in black at the top of the puzzle. And then underneath, when we say response here right now, that's where you'll put the answer. And so the answer, we want it to be no longer than 7 characters because that's what the game is tuned around. If you want to do things that are longer, the game gets a little wonky, which can limit, I think, in some ways might feel limiting in terms of what content you can use this game for. But I think it actually is a fun way of encouraging people to think about the content in ways that are more flexible, right? It's easy to write a question where you say, here's this definition, what's the term for that? And then people give a word. But if you have to frame your questions in a little bit more of a creative way and then make people puzzle out the solution, I think that can encourage some more creative thinking on the part of the game maker, and then also encourage some more lateral thinking in terms for the learner. And I think that encourages kind of more, neural connections between different facts and different parts of the brain. And I think that's actually ends up being a benefit. So multiple reasons why we're limiting it to 7 characters or fewer. I mean, it's 3 to 7 characters because guessing a 2-letter word is kind of anyway. So let's see. Honeycrisp is the answer that I'm going to type in because the Honeycrisp apple, if you like that, it was invented here in Minnesota. Oh, too long. Okay. So what this means is that I've got to change what I'm doing, just like I was saying. Okay. So I think Minnesota is also too long. So what I'm going to do is just use this as an example. U of M. Nothing like public typing to get you a little bit nervous about what you're sharing on screen.
Do you feel stressed? Do you
No,
feel
I'm good.
typos?
So I think for your average learner who's not necessarily an Apple fan or a citizen of the state of Minnesota, this would be a really tough question. The main reason I wanted to pull it up is just because you're talking about fruit, and because I think I just wanted to show you how you can put together puzzle in just a few minutes. Really, the thing that I think is the most challenging is putting together a prompt that is interesting enough to get people engaged in the puzzle, helpful enough to get people focused in the right direction, the right part of the content area, but also doesn't give away too much information. Okay, so that's it. That's one puzzle. I could have different feedback if I wanted to give people one set of facts for a solved response. And if they get stuck and they didn't solve it, I could give them another set of facts. But that is how you make a puzzle in Wordle. If you want to make a game that has more than one puzzle, you just click add and you're on to your second puzzle. So that is how the backend works. And I'm going to pivot back to the roadmap. We can talk a little bit about what's coming up soon at launch and what's going to be coming a little bit further down the road. And then we'll have about 10 minutes for questions, just like we planned. Okay, let's go back to this. All right, can everyone see on the roadmap? Looking for those thumbs up. All right, there's a whole cluster floating on my screen. Wonderful. Okay, so things that we're looking to do before we launch, which will be soon, we're going to be revising those how to play instructions. If you saw that at the beginning of the game, they were kind of long. We're going to break it up further, have the most important information up front. So that's something that we're doing. We're going to be refining the workflow in the CMS. You saw it just a moment ago. It's pretty standard in terms of our training arcade experience right now. I think there's some labels that need to be updated and so on and so forth. But it's generally it'll launch with our standard CMS workflow. We are going to have background music and some clever sound effects, as well as audio controls. So you can turn off one or the other or both. And then we are going to have our leaderboards built in, which of course are optional. So those will be available at launch. You don't have to have a leaderboard in your game if you don't want to. Some things that we're exploring for the future that we're really excited about. We're looking at how we might create an enhanced game creation experience for Noodle, and maybe that might inform some enhancements to other games in the future. We'll see. Streamlining the CMS UI is part of that effort that we're exploring for Noodle in particular. We're going to be working on those category features where we're talking about being able to compare performance in a specific category between learners. So you can see where people might need a little bit more support and remediation. And then we're also doing some additional options for visual customization. So I showed you the blue theme right now. During this webinar, we've got the blue theme for light and we've got a blue theme for dark. We also have a tea theme that is a little bit more kind of restaurant or tea house oriented. And then we're also going to be introducing in the future, we're going to be introducing some additional options for further customization that people can just do from the CMS. So we'll launch with the light blue, the dark blue, and the tea theme. And then additional options for further visual customization will be coming hopefully shortly thereafter. So that's what's coming up. It's what's coming down the pipeline. Okay. So that's what I have to demo today. If you guys have questions where I need to pull up the game and show you something else, I'll be happy to do so. But let's take maybe I think the last 10 minutes, right, Steph, to do with some open Q&A.
Yes. All right. So the first question, are the category and questions, would those be announced by a screen reader if the learner is using a screen reader to play this game? Are they structured as headings that would be read in a specific order?
Yes, that is the plan. Yep, that's the category of information that we want. Category, then the prompt, then the puzzle's open.
Okay, perfect. And what are the features that make Noodle better than Wordle?
So Wordle has individual analytics, and it has some, I think it has analytics that show you how well you're doing across all the players, but you're not necessarily building your own puzzle. If you're talking about the classic Wordle that is currently owned by the New York Times, what we're doing with the training arcade, that's Noodle. So we kind of were inspired by those initial mechanics, but we knew that for training purposes, we need to offer a lot of more flexibility and more analytics. And so that's really where we leaned in terms of our design. And also, we liked noodles. We liked the idea of like playing with the idea of food. We liked the phrase bake your noodle because you're kind of thinking about a puzzle or you're noodling over something. And so we wanted to play around with that a little bit more. And as far as I know, there aren't many Wordle or Wordle-like games out there that put bowls of delicious noodles on your screen.
Definitely
That's my
not.
opinion.
Is there a limit to how many noodle puzzles you can have in one game?
There is. I'm trying to remember what we have offhand as the limit. I think it's 10 or fewer. Let me pull up my game design document just to double check. There is but there is a limit. You can't just have like 100 noodle puzzles in one game.
I think your learners would probably not enjoy that so much.
Yeah.
After 50, you might get tired of coming up with words. Let's see. So we had some people ask about SCORM. Can you export this to SCORM and put it in your LMS?
So I think that the answer is yes, and that's true for all games on the training arcade. You can export those games as SCORM packages and then load them into your LMS. Yep.
And then following up, is there an option to export it as HTML5 instead of SCORM?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, that's what it runs on when you just launch it. So typically, I think if people are looking at doing it in HTML5, they might do an iframe, depending on what you're doing. So you can also just provide the URL to your players directly or through a QR code or something like that. And it'll just run on your browser when you publish it. So
And I know you can embed it as a web object in Lectora.
mm-hmm.
Someone from the product team says the SCORM export still ties to the online web app through iframe, if that helps.
Yeah, right. You don't have to have you'll still get the reporting even if you use the SCORM export. You'll still get reporting back from the training arcade if that's what you want.
Yes. And no coding necessary.
Correct.
Let's see. Can you play on mobile?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yep, it'll be fully responsive.
And I believe that's true for all of the training arcade games, not just
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is for sure with Noodle though. Thinking about people playing on mobile was kind of forefront in our minds just because of our own experiences playing similar games. So it's definitely a good experience on mobile. Um, and and the noodles are bigger on your screen if you have a smaller screen. Just want to point that out.
More noodles, more fun.
Exactly.
All right. That is all of our questions today. Thank you so much, Helen, for joining and giving us this sneak peek of Noodle. It will be
Yeah,
soon. And so that'll be, I believe that's the 11th game in the training arcade. If I'm,
sounds right.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Jen says
Yep.
yes. It will be the 11th game in the training arcade. And you can get a free trial of all the existing games on our website. If you have any questions, there's Ellen's contact information. And we have now about 20 minutes before our next presenter. So thank you so much, Ellen, for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I hope that all of you who are joining from a time zone where it is lunchtime were able to finish your lunch and learn while we talked. Again, yeah, just like Steph said, contact information's on the screen. We can leave it up for a second or two. If you have any ideas or other questions that we didn't either quite answer and you want to follow up, or if you have some feedback you'd like to give us on what you saw, then definitely reach out, let me know, and we'll pass that along to the rest of the development team. Thank you so much.
Thank you.